Here's a question. How do you follow communicative approach in language teaching and learning? How do you follow communicative approach in language teaching? Language teaching and learning disability. Now, write down, please. ल अशोकजीकै पढ्ने पालो ल फिनिस्ट भयो होला महाविलय भएको कारणले अशोकजीको पालो अशोकजीकै पालो हो यो पढ्ने
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
How do you follow communicative approach in language teaching and learning? Describe briefly. Communicative approach is the cry of the day because it enables learners for communication and speech proficiency. The main aim of communicative approach is to develop communicative competence and performance of the learners. Mainly, we have to follow for following strategies to teach language through communicative approach. Number one, focus on appropriateness of language use rather than correctness. Number two, involve the learners in group discussion, dialogue conversation, and other participatory learning. Number three, follow communicative techniques, role play, Steve story, dramatization, and so on. Number four, take errors and mistakes are natural outputs. Develop fluency by using natural and daily used language. Number five, provide enough exposure by using new technology and additional materials.
Thank you. Thank you very much. यो माविका लागि नै हो है यो क्वेसन समर्पित
You're welcome.
माविकै लागि समर्पित क्वेसन नेक्स्ट कन्क्लुजन The communicative approach helps to use language functionally. It also develops creativity of the learners by using natural language भनेर तपाईले दिनु पर्यो अब म जान्छु मल्टिपल इन्टेलिजेन्स र पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी म जान्छु अब दुईटा मल्टिपल इन्टेलिजेन्स एन्ड पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी approach. Multiple intelligence and post method pedagogy approach. multiple intelligence यो पत्ता लगाएका हवार्ड गार्डनरले फाउन्ड बाई हवार्ड गार्डनर यसले भन्छ रेस्पेक्ट creativity and all-round ability of the learners. यसले भन्छ problem solving teaching learning activities occupy गरेर भन्छ nine process of number one, verbal linguistic intelligence. Verbal भनेको बोल्नु एउटा इंटेलिजेंस यो हुन्छ नेक्स्ट लॉजिकल मैथमेटिकल लॉजिकल मैथमेटिकल इंटेलिजेंस हुन्छ विजुअल स्पेशल विजुअल भनेको देख्नु स्पेशल भनेको स्पेस अन्तर्गत bodily kinesthetic intelligence bodily kinesthetic intelligence number 5 musical intelligence number 6 interpersonal intelligence number 7 intrapersonal number 8 naturalistic intelligence number 9 existential intelligence Existentialist intelligence. अब यो सुरुमा म व्याख्या गर्छु यसको, तपाईँलाई हेर्नुहोस्। Just I want to describe. Multiple intelligence approach भनेको के हो सुन्नुहोस् पहिला। Your multiple intelligence method, now look at here. Found by Howard Gardner. Multiple intelligence method ले भन्छ respect creativity and all round ability of the learners भन्छ। सबै all round ability लाई respect गर्नुपर्छ। यो problem solving हुनुपर्छ, problem solving मा आधारित, it should be based on problem solving, teaching learning activities मा आधारित हुनुपर्छ भन्छ। 9 वटा प्रोसेस छन् यसको। सुरुमा verbal linguistic intelligence बोल्ने, बच्चा सानो बच्चाहरुमा verbal linguistic intelligence हुन्छ। त्यसपछि हामीले दुईटा मसँग 2 रुपैयाँ थियो, सरले 2 दिनुभयो भने 4 रुपैयाँ भयो भने एउटा लजिकल म्याथमेटिकल इन्टेलिजेन्स हुन्छ। नेक्स्ट भिजुअल भनेको देख्ने, स्पेशल भनेको हो स्पेस हो, विभिन्न स्थानहरुमा देखेर सिक्ने इन्टेलिजेन्स हुन्छ। बडीली काइनेस्टिक, बडी शो गर्ने, बडीबाट विभिन्न किसिमका प्रतिक्रियाहरू दिन सक्ने लिन सक्नेहरुको इन्टेलिजेन्स हुन्छ। यसलाई बडीली काइनेस्टिक इन्टेलिजेन्स। म्युजिकल इन्टेलिजेन्स त थाहा पाइहाल्नु भएको छ, हो म्युजिकले मान्छेलाई इन्स्पायर गर्छ रे केही कुरा गर्न, मान्छेले म्युजिकको आधारमा विभिन्न किसिमका क्रियाकलाप गर्न सक्छ, म्युजिकल हो। अनि इन्टरपर्सनल र इन्ट्रापर्सनल, इन्टरपर्सनल इन्टेलिजेन्स भनेको व्यक्ति व्यक्ति बीच फरक किसिमको के हुन्छ, क्षमता हुन्छ हो, एउटा व्यक्ति र अर्को व्यक्तित्व। इन्टरपर्सनलको इन्ट्रा भनेको आफै भित्रको विभिन्न इन्टेलिजेन्स, इन्ट्रापर्सनल इन्टेलिजेन्स। र नेचरलिस्टिक इन्टेलिजेन्स भनेको बाइ नेचर ह्युमन बिङ्स लर्न समथिङ। अनि यति यो अस्तित्व आफ्नो जोगाउने इन्टेलिजेन्स हुन्छ। पहिला अब इन्टेलिजेन्सको 9 वटा छ। यो अब्जेक्टिभ क्वेशनमा प्राविमा के अरे निमा बिमा सोध्न सक्छ, तर पोस्ट मेथड मेथोडोलोजी यो मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ, भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ। यो विशेष गरी सेकेन्डरीमा 5 मार्क्समा सोध्न सक्छ। पहिला watch video, then we describe, First of all, watch video, then we describe.
5. Is it the same? Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the 6th video of our video lessons on methods and approaches to language teaching, which is part of the Applied Linguistics 2 course. Today, we are going to talk about post-method pedagogy. In this video, we are going to try to answer the following questions. First, what is post-method pedagogy? Second, what is the problem with the concept of method, and why should we go beyond method? Third, how does post-method pedagogy differ from methods and approaches? Number 4, what are the characteristics of this post-method pedagogy? 5, is it the same as eclecticism? And final question is, does this mean that we have come to the death of method? Now, let's start by providing a definition of what post-method pedagogy is. According to Komaravadivlu, post-method pedagogy is not another method. It is an alternative to method. It is a way of teaching that rejects using techniques, procedures, and theoretical assumptions of any given method in the teaching-learning process. It appeared as a result of the growing dissatisfaction with language teaching methods and approaches which dominated the scene in the 70s and 80s of the 20th century. Post-method pedagogy is based on the outcome of several studies that observed teachers in their classrooms and concluded that the actual practice of teachers in language classrooms do not conform with any of the methods known in the history of language teaching. These studies found out that teachers tend to be more intuitive and eclectic in their teaching practices in order to compensate for and avoid the limitations of methods. Therefore, the whole notion of method has been put into question for several reasons, as we are going to see in the following slides. What is the problem with the concept of method? Well, researchers have pointed out to several limitations of methods, including the most importantly striking mismatch between theory and practice. In fact, a huge gap lies between what methods say in theory and what is actually practiced in the real-world classroom. For instance, the audilingual method claims that its main objective is to help learners gain native-like proficiency, while in reality, very few learners can achieve that unrealistic objective. The silent way requires the use of silence as a key element in the teaching-learning process, but it forgets that a language is learned through social interaction, which is totally the opposite of silence. The total physical response postulates that actions, gestures, and drills are the primary drive to learning, while in reality, it is observed that language learning requires cognitive and metacognitive strategies that transcend mere mechanical drills. In short, no language teaching method can stand alone. Each language teaching method represents a discrepancy between its idealistic theory and its actual application in the real-world classroom, be they at the level of objectives, materials, procedures, teacher roles, learner roles, or even at the level of activities. Another form of criticism that is often leveled against method is related to the top-down relationship between the theorist and the teacher. This simply refers to the fact that people who provide the theory of method are not usually the ones who practice and apply it in the real-world classroom. Thus, one can say that methods are essentially prescriptive, since theorists often prescribe what teachers should teach and how they are expected to teach it by imposing a set of activities, procedures, materials, and roles in order to achieve a set of predetermined learning objectives. The problem is that these theorists often have very little insights about the particularities and specificities of the teaching learning context in which teachers work. Another limitation that is seldom stressed concerning method is that no method is complete. There is always a missing piece that burdens teachers and make them think about alternative ways of completing their tasks. For instance, in the total physical response, the reading and writing skills are missing. In the silent way, speaking and listening skills are missing. In the strong version of the communicative language teaching, the grammar practice and vocabulary explanations are missing. In the audiolingual method, learners' emotions and feelings are missing. In the standards-based language teaching, procedures, activities, and roles are missing. Thus, teachers are consequently and in constant search for ways to compensate for these missing parts. Another problem that is often associated with methods is related to their inconsistency. Methods often hold paradoxical views about various aspects of the teaching learning process. Some methods, for example, focus on teaching grammar, others totally ignore it. Some methods teach only listening and speaking and ignore reading and writing. Others integrate the four skills. Some methods use textbooks, others don't recommend using textbooks. Some methods are teacher-centered, others are learner-centered. Such dichotomies are puzzling, perplexing, and often confusing to teachers and learners alike. One of the pitfalls of methods is that they often have a rigid structure. In fact, methods often dictate and prescribe a set of activities, materials, procedures, roles, techniques, and strategies which teachers and learners must use in a particular sequence with a beginning and an end to achieve a predetermined set of goals. Teachers are required to use these instructions strictly with very little room for innovation, improvisation, and freedom of intervention. One final problem that is attributed to method has to do with its globalized nature. A given method is created to meet the needs of teachers and learners of the area in which it is designed and tested. However, upon its success, the method is then advertised and globalized all over the world without taking into consideration the sociocultural specificities of the new area in which it is going to be used. The fact that a method has succeeded, for instance, in the United States or in England or in Germany, does not necessarily imply that it will succeed in other parts of the world, for instance. A Chinese minister once said that for English language teaching in China, we need a method that is Chinese, a method that respects a sociocultural singularity of the local people, not one that is a threat to the local sociocultural values. We have been talking about the limitations of method, and we have succeeded in listing a number of these limitations and problems. So now, the question is, what is the alternative? And how does this alternative differ from methods? Post-method pedagogy presents itself as an alternative to method for three main reasons. The first reason is that post-method pedagogy is often described as a pedagogy of particularity. Contrary to methods which often claim to be generalizable so that they could be used by teachers all over the world, post-method pedagogy serves a particular teacher working with a particular group of learners to meet a particular set of objectives within a particular institutional context in a given sociocultural environment. In this regard, post-method pedagogy cannot be generalized on national or globalized to international levels, since each teacher teaches a totally different environment, which requires a teaching style that is particular and unique. Post-method pedagogy is built on the assumption that what works for a teacher may not always work for another teacher. And sometimes what works for the same teacher with a group of learners may not always work for the same teacher with a different group of learners. Each teaching and learning experience is unique and particular and has to be dealt with as such. Post-method pedagogy is also known as a pedagogy of practicality, as it is mostly concerned with the practical than the theoretical aspect of teaching. Post-method pedagogy tries to bridge the gap between theory and practice, and hence between the theorist and the teacher, by adopting a paradigm that encourages teachers to theorize for their practice. Thus, in this perspective, a teacher is both a practitioner and a theorizer. The only difference is that the teacher's theory is informed by the practice and experience. Post-method pedagogy in this regard allows the teacher to theorize for their practice and practice what they theorize. The third characteristic of post-method pedagogy is that it is a pedagogy of possibility. Post-method pedagogy provides possibilities for freeing teachers and learners from the socio-political and ideological implications of methods. It allows teachers and learners to question some pedagogical practices that often lead to sustaining social and political inequalities and relations of power and dominance. Examples of such practices include, though not limited to, eliminating instances of sexism and racism and cultural hegemony from textbooks and other teaching materials. So, what is it exactly that has changed in the post-method pedagogy? Well, the first major change is that of the role of the teacher. Within traditional method, the teacher was mainly a practitioner who applies what theorists have prescribed in terms of procedures, activities, goals, techniques, strategies, and roles. In the post-method pedagogy, the teacher has gained a great deal of freedom, autonomy, and responsibility. The role of the teacher has become that of a reflective practitioner who reflects about their own teaching practices and evaluate them. The role of the teacher has become that of a reflective practitioner who reflects about their own teaching practices and evaluate them in terms of their effectiveness in order to find out what works and what doesn't work, and then thinks of better ways of teaching. A reflective teacher combines qualities of a theorist and a practitioner, thus always improving and developing their experiences both personally and professionally. The second major change is that of the teaching process. Traditional methods often consider the teaching process as a linear set of consecutive stages that are ordered in a particular way from the beginning till the end. Within the post-method pedagogy, the process of learning is unpredictable as it depends on the learner's success or failure to learn. Thus, the learning process is cyclic and recursive. We can always go backward to reteach what learners did not learn or what learners failed to learn. Also, learning is multidimensional. It does not only take place between the teacher and the student or between students and students, but it can also take place in different places with peers, with parents, with community, within a community, from the internet or at the workplace. Learning in the post-method pedagogy is skills-based and strategy-oriented. It is based on the belief that knowledge and information is now available everywhere and easily accessible through books and internet. So what students need to learn is not knowledge, but a set of skills, mainly soft skills and strategies of how to effectively use this knowledge and information in ways that better suit their needs and interests. The role of the learner has also changed considerably in the post-method pedagogy. Learners are becoming more autonomous and assume more responsibility of their own learning. They are taught to take control over their learning and develop strategies and skills that enable them to think critically, work collaboratively, and take risks to engage in new learning experiences inside and outside the classroom. Thus, learners are real-world oriented. They ought to find out ways of using what they learn in the classroom to enrich their real-world and daily experiences. And vice versa, they may also use what they learn in the outside world within the classroom. This is facilitated by the emergence of new trends of learning, such as project-based learning, mobile learning, flipped classrooms, distant learning, computer-assisted language learning, virtual classrooms, to name but a few. Is post-method pedagogy the same as eclecticism? Well, post-method pedagogy is not the same as eclecticism. Eclecticism is based on mixing and combining techniques, procedures, strategies, and activities that belong to different methods and approaches in ways that make them work complementarily, simply because these activities, techniques, procedures, and strategies are backed and advertised by these methods. Post-method pedagogy may use the same techniques, procedures, activities, and strategies, but not because they are supported by certain methods, but because they are the best ones to help teachers and learners meet the intended learning objectives. Thus, one can say that the main difference between eclecticism and post-method pedagogy is that eclecticism gains its power from methods, while post-method pedagogy gets its strength from the real, particular teaching learning context. Does this mean that we have reached the death of the method? Post-method pedagogy does not overthrow or eliminate method from the teaching learning arena. In fact, post-method pedagogy and method coexist hand in hand as two distinct stages of the evolutionary spectrum of a teacher's professional development. Methods are more useful to novice teachers who lack the necessary professional skills and experience to do without method. Also, methods provide raw materials for teachers to build a background knowledge about the theoretical and practical aspects of the classroom. As teachers' experience grows, they would be able to adopt an eclectic approach that allows them to select from different methods. Eventually, teachers will gain enough skills, knowledges, behaviors, and experience that will enable them to act independently of any method and thus reach the level where they use their personalized, particular post-method pedagogy. Moving from dependence on method to independence is geared by the teacher's desire to grow professionally, which is facilitated by reflective practice, critical thinking, and self-assessment. At a certain level, it would be pointless to remain faithful to method after several years of teaching experience. If you are interested in knowing more about the post-method pedagogy, here is a list of references for the resources used in this video. This is to remind you that further exercises, materials, textbooks, mock exams are available at this link. I have already provided a video that explains how to access the websites. It's embedded here. Thank you.
अब post method pedagogy बाट के सिकियो त वटा कुरा भन्दैन त आफूले सिकेको 5 हो what do you mean by post method pedagogy friends what do you mean by post method pedagogy what do you mean by post method Mayaji, so mute गर्नुस् पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी लिसन पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले लर्नर्सलाई अटोनोमस बनाउँछ भने टिचर्सलाई रिसोर्सफुल बनाउँछ भने यसले कुनै पनि एउटा कुरालाई मात्र वञ्चित गर्दैन एउटा पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी मेथड हुँदैन धेरै मेथड हुन्छ भने पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी फर्मुला थापा उसमा राखौँ न काम गर्छ
साउन्ड पनि आएको छैन सर सानो सुनिरह अझै सानो सुन्दैछ
सुन्नुभयो अहिले सुन्नुभयो यो लिएर भोइस क्लियर छैन हैन त
सर बल्ल आयो क्लियर
भोइस सुन्ने पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी लर्नर्सलाई अटोनोमस बनाउँछ एउटा पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी भित्र धेरै मेथड्स हुन्छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी लर्नर्सलाई अटोनोमस बनाउँछ भन्न खोजेको सेल्फ लर्निङ सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्सन हुन्छ लर्नर्सलाई पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीमा प्र्याक्टिसनर हो थ्योरिस्ट र टिचर्स ती सबै एकै ठाउँमा मिलेर बसेका हुन्छन् यसको ग्याप सिर्जना गर्दैन एकले अर्कालाई इन्कर्पोरेट गर्छ भन्न खोजेको त्यसमा एकले अर्कालाई फ्यासिलिटेट गर्छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले फंक्शनल ल्याङ्ग्वेज टिचिङलाई जोड दिन्छ फंक्शनल थ्योरिटिकल हैन थ्योरीलाई मात्रै हैन फंक्शनल पार्ट अफ लर्निङलाई जोड दिन्छ भनेको पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले लिसनिङ स्पिकिङ रिडिङ राइटिङ भोकाबुलरी सबैलाई इक्वली जोड दिन्छ भन्न खोजेको अब त्यहाँ के भन्यो कम्युनिकेटिभ एप्रोचले केलाई जोड दिँदैन ग्रामर र भोकाबुलरीलाई जोड दिँदैन भन्यो लिसनिङ र स्पिकिङलाई जोड दिन्छ तर पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले सबै एनालाइटिकल लर्निङलाई जोड दिन्छ भनेको नाउ आर यु लिसनिङ मी
yes sir
are you listening no
yes sir yes clearly listen
yes sir we are listening
sir continue
go ahead sir
सुन्नु भएकै छैन हैन त तपाईहरुले भोइस चाहिँ
we
कति
are listen sir sir सुन्ने
We are listening, sir. Go on.
पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी नाउ लिसन टु मी एकदम इम्पोर्टेन्ट क्वेसन हो माविलाई त 100 यहीँबाट आउँछ क्वेसन पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले एप्रोचहरुको लिमिट कति राम्रोसँग देखाएको छ त्यहाँ हेर्नु त भिडियो एप्रोचहरुको लिमिटेशन्स हो एप्रोचले सबै कुरा के गर्न सकेन कभर गर्न सकेन एप्रोचले गर्दा शिक्षक र थ्योरिस्टको बीचमा के भयो ग्याप बढ्यो थ्योरी र प्र्याक्टिसको बीचमा के बढ्यो ग्याप बढ्यो त्यसको लिमिटेशन्सलाई पूरा गर्नका लागि पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी आएको हो भनेको छ त्यहाँ सुरुमा पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले एउटा मेथड मात्रै हैन पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी भित्र धेरै मेथडहरु पर्छन् हो लर्नर्सको अल राउन्ड डेभलपमेन्टलाई जोड दिएको हुन्छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले ल्याङ्ग्वेजको अल एस्पेक्ट्सलाई जोड दिएको हुन्छ लिसनिङ स्पिकिङ रिडिङ राइटिङ भोकाबुलरी ग्रामर सबैलाई पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी भित्र के को ग्याप हुँदैन प्र्याक्टिसनरको थ्योरिस्टको र टिचर्सहरुको बीचको के हुँदैन ग्याप हुँदैन यसले तिनैलाई के गर्छ इन्कर्पोरेट गर्छ तिनटैलाई के गर्छ इन्कर्पोरेट गर्छ भनेको पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले हो कन्टेक्स्चुअल लर्निङलाई जोड दिन्छ भनेको छ त्यहाँ केलाई जोड दिन्छ कन्टेक्स्चुअल लर्निङ लर्नर्स के हुन्छ अटोनोमस हुन्छ लर्नर्स के हुन्छ अटोनोमस मीन्स द लर्नर्स दे लर्न फ्रीली they can get freedom free environment in language learning in post method pedagogy it doesn't only focuses on post method pedagogy it doesn't focuses on only content knowledge it focuses also how to solve the problems we have to face in our daily life post method pedagogy le jod dieko huncha not only content lai matra jod dine haina post method pedagogy yesto yati राम्रो छ त भिडियो तपाईहरु बुझ्दै बुझ्नुहुन्न खाली नेपालीमा ट्रान्सलेसन बानी परेको छ त्यहाँभन्दा बढी त्यस्तो सिम्पल ल्याङ्ग्वेज छ त्यहाँ खाली नेपाली ट्रान्सलेसनमा पढ्ने बानी परेर अरु अलिकति के रे नेचुरल साउन्ड आयो भने बुझ्दै नबुझ्ने खाली ट्रान्सलेटेड साउन्डमा मात्रै ह्याबिचुअल त्यो नेचुरल साउन्डमा ह्याबिचुअलै नभएपछि कसरी बुझ्ने अनि पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले के भन्छ भने टीचर रिसोर्स पर्सन हो पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले टिचरको रोल मात्रै महत्त्वपूर्ण भन्दैन त्यहाँ हेर्नुस् त प्यारेन्ट्सको रोल पनि इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुन्छ इन्भाइरोमेन्टको रोल पनि इन्भाइरोमेन्टल हो अनि साथी संगतिको रोल पनि इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुन्छ हो त्यहाँ शेयरिङ पनि हुन्छ केयरिङ पनि हुन्छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीमा शेयरिङ पनि हुन्छ केयरिङ पनि हुन्छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीमा हो अनि त्यहाँदेखि प्र्याक्टिस पनि हुन्छ त्यति मात्रै हैन त्यसमा वर्क प्लेस पनि हुन्छ वर्क प्लेस पनि हुन्छ त्यहाँ गएर कहाँ गएर के काम गर्ने भन्ने कुरा त्यसकारणले पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी एउटा बृहत कन्सेप्ट हो ब्रोड कन्सेप्ट हो इट इज नट ओन्ली मेथड हो it tries to remove the weaknesses of the method को weaknesses हरु हटाउन खोजिरहेको यसले हो it tries to improve the limitation of the method हो it tries to link students tries to link between teachers students and theorists यो सबै तीनटै बीचको लिंक गराउन खोजिरहेको छ यसले हो यसले कल्चरल जियोपोलिटिकल त्यसले मात्रै असर पर्दैन ल्याङ्ग्वेज लर्निङमा भनेको लर्नर्स माइन्ड टिचर सपोर्ट इन्भाइरोमेन्ट हो यो सबैले असर पार्छ ल्याङ्ग्वेज लर्निङमा भनेर पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले भनेको छ अब यो पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी अलि इम्पोर्टेन्ट भएको कारणले यसलाई मैले भोलि लेखाइदिन्छु क्वेसनै लेखाइदिन्छु पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी है यो भिडियो एकपटक गएर हेर्नु त मैले लिंक दिन नि बिर्सेछु युट्युबमा गएर फेरि एकपटक हेर्नु त त्यो बुझ्दै नबुझ्ने छ र भिडियो अशोक जी
क्लियर छ
यस्तो सिम्पल ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा छ पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी हेर्नु त यस्तो
गाह्रो छैन सर
हजुर
त्यस्तो गाह्रो छैन अबुझिने त्यस्तो गाह्रो शब्दहरु छैन सर
एकदमै त्यो पोस्ट मेथड तपाईहरुलाई आउने नै त्यहीबाट है क्वेशन मैले फिक्सै भन्दैछु कि कम्युनिकेटिभ एप्रोचबाट कि पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीबाट यो आउने तपाईहरुलाई
ओके सर
अलि राम्रोसँग एउटा त्यो भिडियो हेर्नु म भोलि त्यसको क्वेशन एन्सर लेखाइदिन्छु थ्यांक यू भेरी मच एकपल्ट त्यो भिडियो सबैले हेर्नु त गएर युट्युबमा गएर पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी
यसमा सर्च गरेपछि भेटिन्छ सर?
सर्च गरेपछि भेटिन्छ त्यो एकदमै यस्तो सिम्पल ल्याङ्ग्वेज यति मिलाएर दिएको छ हेर्नु मेथडको ग्यापलाई रिप्लेस गर्न खोजेको छ भनेर दिएको छ त्यसले पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीले हैन
पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी भनेर सर्च गर्नु सर
युट्युबमा गएर पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी सर्च गर्नु
पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी
युट्युबमा गएर दिन्छ
ओके सर ओके थ्यांक यू सर
म भोलि देखाइदिन्छु है यसको पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीको
हुन्छ सर ओके
थ्यांक यू क्लास थ्यांक यू हेभ अ नाइस डे
वेलकम थ्यांक
Okay,
यू
welcome.
सर
भोलि मैले 10 वटा लोअर सेकेन्डरीको लागि अब्जेक्टिभ क्वेशन र सेकेन्डरीको लागि पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजीको डिस्क्रिप्सन है भोलिको मेरो प्लानिङ 10 वटा लोअर सेकेन्डरीको लागि अब्जेक्टिभ र पोस्ट मेथड पेडागोजी भोलि है त थ्यांक यू क्लास
थ्यांक यू सर
Thank you, sir.
अशोक सर